All right, so we were bringing up this question last week, and we didn't get a chance to really talk about it. So the question was, what would you say to parents whose children were saved but have walked away from their faith? Referencing John 10:28, I give them eternal life, and they will never perish. No one can snatch them away from me.
Okay, so that's a great place to start. So no man can snatch them from my hand. Mm-hmm. So Jesus has the ultimate grip. Mm-hmm. Okay, so once he has you, when you confess him as Lord, he always has you. So just as you, as a daughter, could live, I'm not saying you did, but if you lived a wayward life, mm-hmm. you could go to your father and you could tell him all day long, Dad, so sorry, I'm not living like your daughter. I've shamed the family. I've shamed you. I'm not your daughter anymore. What would he say?
That I'm still his daughter.
You're still his daughter. So there would be nothing that you could do not to be his daughter. So it's the same thing. That's what Jesus is saying. So what would I tell a wayward child? First thing is, no matter how much you may chafe against being in God's family, so for many years you walked in God's family and lived like his child, and you've willfully chosen to shake your fist in his face in your 20s or whatever it is, but God still loves you, and he's got you, and you're presuming on his good grace. That's a very dangerous thing to do, but he always has his grip of you. Mm-hmm. You may let go of him, but he will never let go of you because of his love for you as a child. So that would be the first place to start, to remind them. The other is I would remind the child that Jesus is a good shepherd. And so if when you read Luke 15, where it talks about the 90 and 9, that he is, this is where Jesus says, what man who had 100 sheep and it was a shepherd and lost one would not leave the 90 and 9 and go out and search for the lost one? Sure he would. Mm-hmm. And so Jesus is saying, this is my character. If I have 100 sheep in my fold and I lose one because they've wandered off, because that's what sheep do, and they, sheep, like if you don't move them around, they eat all the way down to the roots. They eat everything. I mean, they're not smart, and so they do dumb things. And so he said, if I lose one of my sheep who's doing dumb things and he's in a dangerous situation, don't you think I'm going to go out and try to find him? So I would tell the child, no matter how much you try to run from God, you cannot run from God. He is the good shepherd. He will follow after you, calling your name, trying to get your attention, trying to find you, and trying to woo you back to the place that you know that you should be. So on the positive side, I would weigh in heavy on he's the good shepherd who will always come for you, mm-hmm. to find you. The other thing is, in Luke 15, same chapter, it's a great place to go. That's the story of the prodigal son too, that chapter. Mm-hmm. So in that story, Jesus is the prodigal's father. So that, the story, the man has two sons and one's great and one's not. Mm-hmm. So the one willfully takes off and goes and lives the high life and loses it all and becomes a total apostate. So, but when he sees the error of his way and repents of his sin and comes back to his father is looking for him on the horizon and sees his son, which means he had been daily going out and looking. And when you go to Israel and you see the rolling hills, you can see a house on a hill. You could look off in the distance. You can see your son miles away. Mm-hmm. So, it's the picture of the dad looking daily for his son, and he sees him, and they run and they meet and they kiss, and he throws a party for his son, and he welcomes him back into his home because he's seen his sin and the error of his ways. So it's to let that child know, I will always be the father, the mother who will look for you. I will always have a door open for you. I will always pray for you. I will always look for God to bring you back after you've understood the error of your way and the danger of sin. One day God will get your attention and you'll come back, and I will be waiting for you, and we'll throw a party that day. So, but that's God. God is that way, therefore we should be that way. Mm-hmm. So not vindictive, not angry, not judgmental, not vengeful, but to be the loving parent who longs for the child to return, who wishes for them to return, and whose joy is when they do return. So the other thing that I would do, those are on the positive side. On the negative side, I would read the warning passages of Hebrews. I think there's 5 of them. I think the first one is in chapter 5:11 through 6 verse 10. is the first warning passage. And that's a whole other discussion as to who they're written to. I think they're written to Christians, not to professing Christians, but to real Christians who willfully sin and apostatize and backslide. Because the warning there is, if you do this, God is going to discipline you. He's going to get your attention. So in chapter 6, he says, I'm going to burn you like a field. And a lot of people erroneously assume that means, you lose your salvation, he's going to throw you into hell. That's not even what he's talking about. Just because it says fire doesn't mean it's hell. He said, I'm going to burn you like a field. So where I grew up, in California, when farmers are done with their growing season, they burn their fields like September, October to get them ready for the next year to plant seed. So burning the field destroys all of the weeds and cleanses the field to make it productive. And I have seen that so many times in my lifetime, and it's always a spiritual illustration that God will discipline the wayward child like a field that's full of weeds, but he burns it not to destroy it, but to make it more productive. So I would tell my child, those 5 warning chapters in the book of Hebrews, there's one in chapter 5 and 6, there's another one in chapter 10, there's another one in chapter 12, where he says, whom the Lord loves, and he scourges every son, because he wants you to be fruitful. He loves you enough to discipline you. So I would tell them, I'm just going to leave you with these 5 warning passages to tell you, as a child of God, he's got you, he's your good shepherd, and he's also your father, and because he's your father, he loves you enough to discipline you to get your attention so you'll turn away from sin. So he will burn your field, and boy will he, to get you to see, I shouldn't be with these people anymore. I shouldn't be doing this anymore. I got to get back to where I was before, and to return. So I would let them know about the warning passages, and then pray for them. Pray a lot for them, that God would protect them, that God would teach them, God would give them wisdom, God would wake them up, etc. Just pray a lot for them. And then I would not shove Christianity at them every single time I was near them, because they'll just pull away. So there's a sense in which you have to let them come toward you. So wisdom would say, you don't overreact. Give them space. Less is more.
Right. So in essence, would you say these parents could have peace knowing that because their child was saved, they're saved for all time? Kind of touching on what we did last week.
I mean, this is a story of my little sister. She was the prodigal.
Yeah.
There was me and my sister Marla, a year apart. We were pretty much good kids, and 6 years later came my little sister Julie, and you name it, she did it. And anybody can talk to my mom. She will be glad to talk to you about what it was like to have a backslidden daughter who was a Christian. I mean, my sister had toured out of Nashville with a Christian music group professionally, touring all over the United States, 100,000 miles a year, doing concerts all over the U.S. for God. Then eventually threw it all away for like 8 or 9 years of wild living. Drugs, going home with guys from bars and stuff like that. And my dad's a federal agent. She totally humiliated my father. So my mom can tell you what it was like to have a child like that, and I can tell you what it was like to be a brother of a child of a sister like that. What we went through is all the things I've been talking to you about. I mean, we went through all the emotion of it, but after about 8 or 9 years, she eventually came to Christ. I mean, she was a secretary for Dobson in LA at one point. So she went from Christendom to living out of her car in Los Angeles and going home with guys from bars. I'm unbelievable. But now she's back walking with Christ, has a vibrant walk with the Lord. But through that, she didn't lose her salvation. She just lost the joy of her walk with Christ. And now she's like, what was I thinking back then? Yeah. But so all the things I just told you were things that we in our family did, among other things. So just you pray God does what he needs to do to bring them back. And just have patience. And it may take 9 years.
Right.
Yeah.